At 6:15 a.m. local time, a formation of 15 Ukrainian long-range drones streaked across the Gulf of Finland, heading straight toward Luga, Russia's most fortified Baltic port location, so heavily defended that Russian commanders casually referred to it as untouchable. They had already traveled 960 kilometers through the night, engines pushed to their limits, fuel indicators sinking dangerously low. Everything appeared routine until shapes began to emerge in the morning haze. A Russian patrol craft slipped out of the fog like a ghost. The Ukrainian lead drone banked sharply right, just moments before tracer rounds ripped through the air beneath them. The patrol boat's 14.5mm machine gun was already locked on, laying a line of fire directly into their path. Rounds passed so close between two drones that if humans were on board, they would have felt the shockwave of each bullet. But these weren't piloted aircraft. Their pilots were operators sitting in bunkers near Kyiv, watching blurry satellite feeds. The patrol boat fired again, this time launching 3 Iglas missiles, weapons designed for helicopters but now desperately shot into the dim dawn sky, hoping to catch the small silhouettes. The drones split apart like startled birds, some climbing, others dropping to just above the waves. One missile lost lock entirely, spiraling into the Baltic Sea. Another detonated harmlessly between two drones, its proximity fuse triggered by empty air. The third missile found a target. A trailing Beaver drone lit the horizon with a brief fireball before scattering across the water. 14 drones remained. They regrouped, tightened formation, and continued toward Luga, now barely 40 kilometers away. That's when Russia's S-400 air defense system switched to full alert. For several minutes, the system's gravestone radar had quietly tracked the incoming objects. Now it shifted from passive search to active targeting, its radar beams sweeping across the sky like a giant spotlight. These weren't hobby drones. They were UJ-26 Beavers, military-grade attack drones engineered to survive Russia's most advanced air defenses. And the S-400 operator was about to discover why his multi-billion ruble system dreaded facing drones that cost just $35,000 each. As the Beavers entered range, the S-400 began illuminating them with bursts of radar energy. The system works by firing focused radio waves near 3 gigahertz and measuring how much bounces back, like sonar, but using radio instead of sound. But the Beavers were built from fiberglass and carbon composites, returning only a fraction of the radar reflection that traditional aircraft produce. At a distance of 40 kilometers, they appeared no larger than seabirds on the radar screen. The operator struggled to acquire a clean lock. So, he switched tactics. Instead of relying on ground radar alone, he launched 2 48N6DM long-range missiles, each costing nearly $2 million, hoping their onboard seekers could provide better tracking. The missiles blasted into the sky. But this is where physics favored the Ukrainians. The drones instantly dropped to 10 meters above the water, skimming the waves. The S-400 missiles attempted to dive after them at extreme angles, around 70 degrees, but their control surfaces, like wings, required airflow to maneuver. At such steep angles, they stalled. Both missiles tumbled and plunged into the sea. The Russian crew quickly shifted strategy again, launching the more agile 9M96 E2 interceptors, weapons equipped with tiny lateral thrusters that allow abrupt 90-degree course changes even with minimal airflow. These missiles behave differently. They could pull 60 Gs, twist violently in the air, and track nearly down to sea level. One missile honed in on the lead Beaver. The drone banked left hard, but the missile recalculated in milliseconds. 3 seconds to impact, 2 seconds, then detonation. A cloud of tungsten fragments shredded the drone into a spray of carbon fiber dust. Another missile destroyed a second drone, but it also created a problem for the Russians. The explosion threw debris into the air, multiplying radar reflections. Suddenly, 20 targets appeared where 12 had been, creating a noisy storm of false readings. The remaining drones split into chaotic directions, climbing, diving, turning left and right, in an effort to stay hidden among their fallen comrades' fragments. But the Russians had seen this tactic before. They had already positioned 4 Pantsir S-1 batteries in overlapping kill zones, forming what they referred to as the box. No matter where the drones ran, they would fly into somebody's sights. The Pantsirs were built precisely for this moment. Part missile system, part rapid-fire gun platform. Russia's last shield when everything else failed. Unlike the S-400, Pantsir crews use a method called shoot, observe, shoot again. Fire a single missile, watch if it hits, adjust. Fire another one Pantsir locked onto the drone formation and launched a 57 E6 missile toward the center. The drones countered with an evasive maneuver known as the wagon wheel, spiraling around an imaginary central point while still moving forward. Picture a spinning carousel rolling down a road. This constantly changing angle confused the missile's navigation system, which requires predictable motion to calculate an intercept point. The Pantsir gunner switched to his twin 30mm cannons, capable of firing 5,000 rounds per minute. He didn't try to track individual drones instead. He created a deadly volume of air, filling a cubic space with so much lead that anything passing through it would be shredded. 4 drones flew into this kill zone. Only 2 emerged. The math was unforgiving. 9 drones left. Dozens of Russian missiles fired, hundreds of cannon rounds expended, and the drones had not yet reached the port inside the regional command center. Warning indicators lit up across the entire district. Similar drone battles were unfolding at Kursk, Bryansk, and Rostov. 14 separate drone formations were attacking western Russia at once. No reinforcements would be coming. The defenders at Luga were completely on their own, and so were the drones. The 9 remaining Beavers pushed onward, aware that the most difficult obstacle still lay ahead. The Krasuka 4 electronic warfare vehicle, disguised as a simple metal cargo container on wheels, was anything but ordinary. Inside, it housed over $20 million worth of advanced jamming systems. As the drones entered its range, the Krasuka began flooding radio frequencies with overpowering interference, like shouting static directly into a communication line. Its operators executed a technique known as sweep and dwell, rapidly scanning every channel between 1.2 and 5.8 gigahertz, until they detected drone communications at 2.4 gigahertz. The system then focused all its power on that band, creating a dense wall of electronic noise. But the Beavers weren't using a single frequency, they were rapidly frequency hopping, shifting among 128 channels every second in a pattern known only to the drone and its operator. In theory, this should make jamming nearly impossible, but the Russians had one more option: barrage jamming. Instead of hunting specific frequencies, they fired noise across the entire spectrum, like burning down the entire haystack instead of searching for the needle. This should have severed the control link entirely, but the drones continued flying. They had seamlessly shifted into autonomous navigation, using onboard terrain models and radar altimeters to follow pre-mapped routes without external guidance. Every ridge, every building, even bridges and tree lines were pre-programmed. But autonomy had its flaws. 3 drones collided with a construction crane that wasn't on their old maps. The structure appeared suddenly through the fog, too late for their sensors to react. Each impact was instant and fatal. 6 drones remained, their battery levels falling toward 18%. They had enough charge to reach the target, but not enough to dodge anything else. The remaining 6 drones descended to treetop level, skimming just 12 to 15 meters above the ground. The speed was still high, nearly 180 kilometers per hour, but low enough that Russian early warning radars began losing track of them. The landscape itself became their camouflage. Every few seconds, patches of forest, warehouses, or water towers momentarily hid them from radar beams, causing their signals to blink in and out. For the defenders, it was like trying to follow fireflies in a thunderstorm. On the outskirts of Luga, a Russian Tor-M2 air defense unit had been waiting silently. The crew had been briefed that the drones were approaching, but their radar screens remained nearly empty. Just flickers and disappearing dots. Then a cluster of returns appeared for half a second. The Tor operator acted instantly. He launched 2 9M338 missiles, small, deadly interceptors optimized for drones and cruise missiles. Their compact booster stages ignited with a sharp bark and streaked toward the low-flying formation. The Beavers reacted by performing abrupt vertical jinks, short hops upward of 8 to 10 meters, then dropping back down. These unpredictable altitude changes created errors in the missile's prediction algorithms, which tried to determine where the drone would be several seconds later. The first missile overshot and exploded above them. Shrapnel rained down, grazing the rear drone and damaging its tail fin, but not destroying it. The second missile detonated beside an industrial chimney after losing lock entirely. The Tor battery fired again, this time 4 shots in rapid succession, but their window of opportunity was shrinking. The drones were now weaving between buildings, dipping into urban canyons where radar beams struggled to penetrate. 2 missiles detonated prematurely after skimming too close to rooftops. A third missile lost control when it momentarily passed through the wake turbulence of a previous explosion. The fourth came within 3 meters of a drone, close enough to scorch its carbon fiber skin but not close enough for a kill. By the time the smoke cleared, the drones had passed beyond the Tor battery's firing arc. 6 drones still alive, 5 running perfectly, 1 limping but flying. Ahead of them stood the reason this mission existed. A sprawling military complex containing missile stockpiles, artillery shells, fuel depots, vehicle repair bays, command nodes, ammunition train lines, Russia's largest Western logistics hub. And guarding it was the last major defensive layer, a fortified perimeter with patrol towers, guard posts, and a web of electronic jamming stations arranged in overlapping rings like ripples across a pond. As the drones closed in, the interference density increased sharply, radio links glitched, live camera feeds blurred, telemetry flickered, then froze. 3 drones lost operator control entirely. They switched into failsafe mode, relying on their internal mapping and inertial navigation systems. These systems were accurate, but easily confused by sudden landscape changes. The lead autonomous drone misinterpreted a cluster of shipping containers as a safe corridor and clipped a metal edge. It exploded instantly. Another drone veered too close to a transmission line. Electric arcing struck its wing and fried its flight controller. 4 drones remained. Inside the facility, Russian personnel were already racing across courtyards, sounding alarms, grabbing rifles, and rushing to defensive positions. None had any idea exactly where the drones were, but they knew they were coming. As the drones reached the inner jamming radius, even their inertial units began to drift. Each one was experiencing a different failure. Drone A, GPS blackout. Drone B, video feed, lagging by 5 to 7 seconds. Drone C, flight controller overcorrecting drone. D, propeller blade cracked from earlier shrapnel. All 4 were now flying blind, some partially, some entirely. But the Ukrainians had anticipated this. At a pre-programmed point, a low-power directional antenna activated on Drone A. This created a narrow, focused line-of-sight link back to a Starlink repeater mounted on a disguised vehicle 70 kilometers away. For 10 seconds, just 10, operators regained full control. Enough. The drones shot upward, climbing sharply to 80 meters to get a full visual of the facility. Russian machine gunners opened fire. Tracer lines crisscrossed the sky, stitching patterns across the early morning light. Drone B took 2 hits in its wing but kept climbing. Drone D was struck in the fuselage and began trailing smoke. Drone C lost half a propeller blade and vibrated violently. Still, all 4 reached altitude. For the first time, the drone operators had a clear camera view of the target, and it was enormous. Rows of warehouses, long trains parked on ammunition sidings, fuel storage tanks, armored vehicles lined up beside maintenance sheds, everything in one place. It would only take one well-placed strike to ignite the chain reaction. Both drones, A and B, dropped into their terminal dives, following the last instructions their operators managed to send before the blackout. No vision, no guidance, only momentum, programming, and purpose. The Russian defenders watched in silence for half a second, just long enough to realize they were out of time. Machine gunners raised their weapons, but the drones were already too close. Drone A struck first. It hit the main warehouse door at a steep angle, tearing through the sheet metal like paper. For a fraction of a heartbeat, its camera, still frozen, captured nothing but darkness. Then the shaped charge detonated. A blinding white flash erupted inside the structure. The explosion punched outward, blowing the massive door off its hinges and sending a shockwave rolling across the facility like a physical force. Inside the warehouse, the first row of artillery shells cooked off, followed instantly by the second and third rows. A chain reaction was beginning before anyone could move. Drone B struck the adjacent warehouse, knocking its warhead piercing deep into the building's reinforced walls. Its explosion triggered a pressure wave that slammed into the first warehouse, amplifying the chain reaction already underway. For 2 long seconds, the world held its breath. Then the entire depot ignited. What followed was not a simple explosion. It was a cascading eruption of ammunition, rockets, and fuel that tore through the Luga arsenal with unstoppable force. Blast after blast rippled outward as stockpiles detonated in sequence, each more violent than the last. The ground shook as if struck by artillery. Fireballs rose hundreds of meters into the morning sky. Black columns of smoke formed towering plumes that could be seen from villages 40 kilometers away. Windows shattered as far as the administrative district. Parked vehicles were overturned by shock waves. Guards were thrown to the ground by the pressure. For Russian personnel inside the facility, there was no safe direction. Every warehouse, every train car, every stored munition was now part of the chain reaction. The defense perimeter collapsed instantly. Communications broke down. Radio towers toppled. Jamming stations burned where they stood. The arsenal, Russia's key Western ammunition hub, was no longer a functioning base. It was an inferno. 60 kilometers away, inside a Ukrainian command bunker, the drone operators regained a clean video feed, but there was nothing left to guide. The warehouse complex was engulfed in flames, shockwaves still rolling outward. Plumes of smoke spiraled into the sky, forming a dark vortex over the ruined facility. The operators watched in silence. They knew what this meant. Dozens of Russian artillery battalions would now face ammunition shortages. Missile allocations would have to be rerouted. Repair logistics paused. Fuel convoys diverted. Timelines delayed by months. The destruction of this single hub would ripple across the front lines like a stone thrown into still water, and all of it had been delivered by drones weighing less than a man. Over the next 3 hours, secondary explosions continued to detonate inside the facility as flames reached deeper storage bunkers. Fire crews were unable to approach for nearly half a day. Rail lines leading to the arsenal were twisted beyond use. If you found this cinematic breakdown powerful and informative, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next deep dive documentary. Thanks for watching.